Chosen one. Tonight ends what you never understood. You might be asking yourself what that really means. Think of this moment as a cosmic turning point. Whatever doubts, fears, or unfulfilled desires have quietly haunted your nights. Tonight draws a line in the sand. It's the threshold between what seemed locked away and the possibility that lies just beyond your current reality. Consider this an invitation to a deeper awareness, a portal into clarity, purpose, and transformation. This isn't clickbait or vague motivation, it's an energetic signal broadcast into your life. If your heart resonates, if something inside you stirs, you're here for a reason. Tonight matters. The ordinary can shift into something extraordinary. The unseen can finally reveal itself. Before we step into a transformative journey, I want to invite you to engage fully. Watch this video all the way to the end. Don't skip. Let every phrase and idea sink in. Leave a comment below with your warmest wishes and type 77 to sync your frequency with this message. Why 77? Because it amplifies intent, harmony, and flow, helping wishes become reality and energizing the universe. Together, we create a space where possibility thrives. Now, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's dive deeper. Now breathe deeply. Release tension. Open your heart. Because tonight, we dive into the core of what you never understood. Until now, we explore how your inner world shapes your experience, how subtle shifts in perception can recalibrate everything, and how the universe responds when we step into alignment. This isn't just a pep talk, it's a guide, a catalyst, a map to how energy, focus, intention, and presence converge to rewrite your narrative. Begin by noticing how familiar life may feel. Same problems, same patterns, same feelings swirling around. You've tried routines, advice, methods, and yet nothing really clicks. That's because surface-level change only goes so far. The real shift happens when you engage at the quantum level. Thoughts, beliefs, emotions, energy fields. And guess what? You already have everything you need. This video will show you how to access it. We begin with awareness, the key that opens the door. Awareness isn't just noticing things, it's quietly observing your inner world, your thoughts, your triggers, your energy levels. It's distinguishing between the voice of fear and the voice of wisdom. It's learning to hold the tension between challenge and clarity. As you settle into this state, you start to sense patterns that were previously invisible. This sense of awareness, like the calm at the eye of a storm, holds the power to undo old scripts. As awareness blossoms, you step into choice. Choice is freedom. Most of us run on autopilot, repeating habits, replaying memories, acting from conditioned responses. But tonight, we reclaim the pause, the ability to insert choice before reaction. You might choose self-love instead of criticism, compassion instead of anger, openness instead of resistance. These choices are tiny, but they ripple outward. Every moment reinvested in conscious choice rewrites your underlying code. Next comes alignment. Once you're aware and choosing consciously, you align your energy toward what feels true and meaningful. Alignment means your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and actions move together like an orchestra tuning in harmony. When there's discord, say, wanting change but fearing failure, energy dissipates. But clarity, confident intention, guided feeling, and aligned action produce resonance. And resonance feels like, well, magic. It lights you up from the inside. Resonance invites momentum. When your energy is clear and aligned, the universe, or however you describe it, source, life force, cosmic intelligence, begins to match that frequency. You start noticing opportunities, synchronicities, and shifts that previously seemed like wishful thinking. Doors open, people show up, insight emerges. What felt impossible now becomes part of your unfolding story. Yet, none of this works if you resist joy. Joy isn't a reward, it's a signal. It signals that your inner and outer are in harmony. So we speak to the vibrational mecca of being, where creativity flows, confidence arises, ease takes root. Joy is not dependent on circumstances, it is cultivated from the inside. When you nourish your joy, your energy aligns further, magnetizing more of the same. Tonight, understand that expansion isn't reserved for a select few. It's available to everyone. That includes you. Yes, especially you. You might think, who am I to receive this? But that voice is the last hold of your old understanding. Let it dissolve. Let belief in possibility rise to your forefront. When belief meets action, doors unlatch. However, transformation isn't always comfortable. As you step into new energy, the old energy will try to chase you down. That voice saying, "Stay small," or "This is too much," might echo. Recognize it. Thank it for its attempt to protect you. Then choose to keep going. That discomfort means you're expanding, like stretching a muscle. Embrace it as a sign you're aligning deeper. By the end of this video, you'll have not just ideas, but practices, simple yet potent shifts to cultivate awareness, choices, alignment, resonance, and inner joy. Practices that can be repeated, refined, woven into daily life. Tonight is your launch. It's a dedication to a new way of being, one rooted in conscious energy. Remember, reality is not fixed. Your inner state matters, your consciousness matters, your dance with energy matters. You're not passive. You are the field that shapes and responds to the universe. And tonight, that field is ready to expand. Stay present as we go deeper, because tonight ends what you never understood and reveals what you were always capable of. You've been walking through life with pieces of a puzzle in your hands, sensing that they belong somewhere, but not quite knowing how they fit together. Every experience, every heartbreak, every delay, every breakthrough has been part of a coded message written specifically for you, but the code remained uncracked until now. Tonight is not just a conclusion of your confusion. It is a decoding of your existence, a recalibration of what has been fragmented within you. For so long, you tried to understand what was happening to you, why certain things didn't work out, why others betrayed you, why blessings were delayed, why your soul felt restless even in moments of stillness. The mind sought explanations, but never truly found peace. That's because what you needed wasn't another answer. You needed alignment with a truth too vast for logic, too sacred for ordinary thought. You are being shown that the life you've lived so far wasn't a punishment or a mistake. It was preparation. The confusion was not a flaw. It was a signal. It was the sacred fog that slows you down long enough to make you sensitive, intuitive, aware. What seemed like delays were sacred detours that molded your spirit to be receptive to the very thing that is now approaching. And what is approaching is clarity, but not the kind that comes through calculation. It's the kind that arrives like sunrise, gentle, natural, inevitable. Tonight, you are no longer fighting the current. You are learning to float with it. Surrender is not weakness. It is power in its most graceful form. It's the art of becoming so aligned with divine rhythm that you no longer chase outcomes, you magnetize them. What you never understood was that your very essence is already connected to all that you desire. The illusion was separation. The reality is union. The misunderstandings of your past were never because you were broken. They were because you were awakening. Awakening is messy. It undoes everything you thought was solid. It peels away false confidence and demands deeper roots. And yet, here you are, still breathing, still standing, still called. The chaos did not destroy you. It rebuilt you with more truth. Tonight, all of that becomes visible. Your pain didn't come to punish you. It came to awaken your gifts. Your loneliness wasn't a curse. It was sacred space, carved out for connection that is real, not rushed. Your delays were not denials. They were divine edits to ensure that you don't arrive at your future as someone you no longer are. And your confusion? It was your soul whispering, "Wait, there is more, and there is more." Because what you never understood, until now, is that everything operates on timing, not tension. What you forced fell apart. What you flowed with eventually found you. The moment you stopped grasping, you began attracting. The moment you stopped questioning your worth, you started radiating value. The moment you stopped trying to figure it all out, you began receiving in ways the mind could never orchestrate. This is the shift that is happening within you tonight. You're stepping out of the loop of doubt and into the lane of destiny. No more second-guessing your worth. No more bargaining with your potential. No more asking the world for permission to rise. The time for that ended the moment you clicked this message. Your energy has already shifted. That's why the words are resonating like echoes from your own soul. This is remembrance, not revelation. You are remembering the sacred truth. You were never alone in the dark. The universe was quiet because it was listening. It was listening to your longing, to your prayers that had no words, to the ache behind your strength. And now it responds, not with noise, but with movement, with signs, with shifts, with sensations of certainty you haven't felt before. You'll start to notice it soon if you haven't already. A sense of peace that doesn't make sense. A lightness in your chest where heaviness used to dwell. A quiet confidence whispering that you're not lost, you're being led. And as this energy flows into your life, you'll begin to see how everything connects. Not just the good moments, but the hard ones too. They weren't in your way. They were making you into the vessel that could hold what's coming next. This moment is not about forgetting the past. It's about transforming your relationship with it. No longer seeing it as proof of your failure, but as evidence of your evolution. Every misunderstanding was actually a message, disguised. Tonight, the disguises fall away. You see things for what they are. People, decisions, delays, miracles, all aligned, even if they looked chaotic at the time. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time for the unfolding of your highest timeline. The confusion was never about clarity being absent. It was about you growing into the person who could recognize it when it arrived. And now, you do. The fog is lifting. The mystery is making sense. The ache is making way for peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand that you are allowed to be whole, even as things continue to shift. The truth you are meeting tonight is not new. It is eternal. It's been waiting for you to become still enough to hear it, wise enough to embrace it, strong enough to carry it forward. You are now that person. You are the intersection of preparation and power. You are the moment becoming the miracle. You are what you've been waiting for. So stay with this energy. Let it work on you. Let it shape your thoughts, your breath, your choices. Because tonight, the misunderstanding ends, not with noise, but with stillness, not with explanation, but with embodiment. You become what you sought, and everything that confused you before will now become the foundation of your clarity. You are the chosen one, and this is your turning point. You may not have noticed it at first, but something has already shifted within you. It wasn't loud. It didn't come with fireworks. It came as a quiet release, a subtle inner yes, a breath that no longer carried the weight of all your yesterdays. You didn't need to fight for it. It found you the moment you stopped resisting what was already meant for you. That's how real transformation begins, in the stillness that follows surrender. And maybe that's what you never understood until now, that the answers you were chasing were already written into your design. You weren't meant to hunt them down, but to uncover them from within. The truth wasn't hiding behind a mountain or buried in a future moment. It was always breathing underneath your pain, waiting for you to slow down long enough to hear it. Every time you tried to fix yourself, you overlooked the deeper invitation, not to become someone else, but to come home to who you truly are. You were never broken. You were simply out of alignment with your essence. Tonight, that alignment is restoring itself, not through effort, but through remembrance. You're remembering that your worth is not conditional. It is constant. That your calling is not fragile. It is eternal. And that the confusion you carried was never a sign of failure. It was a sacred preparation for the clarity you now receive. You don't have to understand how it all works. You only have to allow it. Let yourself be expanded. Let yourself be witnessed by the universe that has always seen you in your fullness. You've tried to prove yourself. You've tried to earn rest, earn love, earn visibility. But the truth is, you were already worthy of all of it before you did anything at all. And that's the real revelation, the part that finally clicks, the part you couldn't grasp when you were stuck in survival mode. You thought clarity would come when the pain stopped. But clarity came when you stopped running from it, when you faced yourself without judgment, when you asked deeper questions. What is this moment asking of me? What would happen if I trusted instead of controlled? What if the struggle wasn't the path, but a sign I was forcing the wrong direction? Now you understand something more powerful than any strategy, that energy doesn't lie. And when something doesn't feel right in your spirit, no matter how logical it seems, it isn't for you. You can't keep betraying your intuition for the comfort of the known. You can't keep settling for situations that shrink you, mute you, or ask you to dim your brilliance. That's not humility, it's self-abandonment. And that cycle ends tonight. You are allowed to walk away from anything that confuses your peace. You are allowed to rewrite the story that says you must carry everyone else while neglecting your own soul. You are allowed to start again, today, tonight, right now. No need for permission, no need for applause. Your decision to step into clarity is already enough, because clarity is not about knowing every detail. It's about knowing yourself. It's about recognizing the feeling of alignment and honoring it. It's about walking into the unknown, not with fear, but with faith. Not because you're certain of the outcome, but because you're certain of your ability to respond with grace. That's what's changing now. Your response, your relationship with discomfort, your ability to see through appearances and feel the energy underneath. You are no longer fooled by surface-level beauty or temporary validation. You know how to discern. You know how to pause. You know how to observe. This is not detachment. It's maturity. The kind of spiritual intelligence that comes from fire-tested experience. And you've been tested. You've faced seasons where everything felt like it was collapsing, when the people you loved most didn't understand you, when your efforts seemed invisible, when the more you tried to do the right thing, the more distant peace became. But now you realize you weren't being punished. You were being refined. You were being emptied of what couldn't come with you. There were habits that needed to fall away. There were illusions that needed to break. There were attachments that needed to dissolve. It wasn't cruelty, it was compassion in disguise. The universe was creating space for the version of you who is finally ready to lead from truth, not trauma. And truth, dear one, doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't shout. It simply is. It resonates. It rests in your bones. It silences every inner storm because it doesn't compete. It just becomes. You are becoming that truth, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. And as you stand in this energy, you begin to realize that what you never understood was actually your greatest gift, because not knowing forced you to seek, because confusion softened your edges, because humility made room for divine wisdom to pour in. You're no longer in a rush to fix everything. You're learning to trust the unfolding. You're learning that sometimes the greatest transformation isn't visible, it's vibrational. Tonight, the old cycle is breaking, not with drama, not with chaos, but with grace. A graceful ending, a sacred release, a gentle transition from effort to embodiment, from questions to presence, from fear to knowing. There's no final destination, only deeper layers of truth waiting to be unveiled. You'll continue walking forward, not to arrive, but to express the fullness of who you are becoming. That is the purpose. That is the power. And as you continue this journey, remember, you are not just healing. You are expanding. You are not just learning. You are remembering. You are not just evolving. You are returning to the you that always knew. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when silence speaks louder than answers, when stillness reveals more than action. You have arrived at that moment. What once confused you is no longer frightening, because you're not trying to understand everything with your mind anymore. You're feeling it with your soul. And your soul, brave one, has always known the truth. The confusion you've carried was never yours to hold forever. It was a bridge, a necessary place, a waiting room where you unlearned the illusions that had kept you small. Tonight, that room has dissolved. The doors are open, and you're not who you were when you entered. You're lighter, wiser, sharper in ways no mirror can show. You've shed timelines, attachments, versions of yourself that were born from survival, not alignment. There's a part of you now that doesn't chase closure anymore. You've stopped needing people to validate what you felt, to explain what they did, or to rewrite the past so it hurts less. You no longer make peace through others. You make it through truth. And truth doesn't always come with an apology. It comes with a mirror. And you've looked into it. You've faced what many run from. You've stood inside your ache and declared, "There's more for me than this." That decision rewrote your destiny. You don't need to over-explain your growth to anyone. Not everyone will understand what you've just survived. Not everyone is meant to. Some will try to define you by who you used to be. Some will try to guilt you for choosing yourself. Some will call it ego, rebellion, or distance. But they didn't witness the nights you barely held on. They didn't hear your silent prayers. They didn't carry the weight that nearly broke you. You don't owe anyone your collapse in order to prove your courage. What you never understood, until now, is that outgrowing people, places, and patterns isn't cruelty. It's clarity. And clarity, in its purest form, creates distance, not to isolate, but to elevate. Because some spaces are simply too small for the frequency you've now reached. You've been shaped by divine tension, by questions without answers, by silence that stretched you, by endings that felt unfair. But all of it pulled you into a new realm of discernment. You're not moved by surface anymore. You feel what's real. You sense the undercurrents of truth. You recognize when something looks right but feels wrong, and you trust the feeling. This is where your real power begins. You don't react from panic. You respond from knowing. You don't force conversations to be heard. You simply walk away and let silence speak for you. You don't beg for room at tables that insult your essence. You build your own, and you make it sacred. This is a level of self-respect that can't be taught. It is earned through fire, and you walked through it without losing your light. Even when it didn't make sense, even when the pain outlasted the explanation, you held on to a deeper thread, something you couldn't quite name but couldn't release either. That thread was your calling. It kept pulling you forward when your mind told you to stop. It kept reminding you, there is more, there is more, there is more. And now, that more is meeting you. Not in a loud eruption, but in a quiet shift. In the way your breath feels different. In the way your chest no longer tightens at the sound of their name. In the way you feel grounded in rooms where you once shrunk. In the way you no longer need to be understood to feel at peace. That, dear one, is the return of your power. Your clarity is not an accident. It's the result of your commitment to truth. And that truth is not always comfortable, but it is always liberating. You now understand that anything costing your peace is too expensive. That anything requiring you to betray yourself isn't love. That anything confusing your soul's yes is not your path. Let that understanding guide you from now on. Let it be your filter, your compass, your standard, because you've reached the moment where you no longer negotiate with your intuition. You listen, you act, you trust, not because you have all the details, but because you now know who you are. And who you are is sacred. You are no longer a seeker of light. You are the embodiment of it. You are no longer trying to become, you are allowing yourself to be. You don't have to wait for someone to see your worth. You've seen it, you've claimed it, and the universe responds to that certainty, not with chaos, but with alignment, not with noise, but with precision. Tonight marks a soft but irreversible revolution inside of you. The version of you that needed answers to feel safe has been replaced by one who trusts the rhythm of the unknown. The version of you that sought approval has stepped aside for the version that carries divine authority. The version that confused delay with denial now understands. Everything delayed was your protection, your preparation, your path into divine precision. You are no longer in the waiting room. You are the arrival. So breathe deeper, stand taller, choose with confidence. The misunderstanding is over. You don't have to carry what isn't yours anymore. You don't have to explain your shift to those committed to misunderstanding it. You don't have to return to places where your presence was tolerated, not treasured. You have graduated into a new energetic frequency, and everything that meets you now must honor the version of you that chose truth over comfort. This is your moment, not because the world has changed, but because you have. And once that shift happens, nothing can stay the same. By now, you've started to feel the difference, not just in your thoughts, but in your presence. There's a silence around you that doesn't feel like emptiness anymore. It feels like command, like power you don't need to announce, like a space you don't need to fill with explanations. That silence used to scare you. Now it protects you. Now, it empowers you, because it's no longer a void, it's the sound of you not negotiating your truth. And the truth is, you never needed to be rescued. You needed to be reminded. You needed to be reminded that the fire inside you wasn't something to be extinguished. It was sacred. That the dreams that haunted you were never random. They were blueprints. That your sensitivity wasn't a weakness. It was evidence of your spiritual radar. You were always chosen, but you had to walk through unchosen moments to realize it. This is what you never understood. Until now, you thought being chosen meant life would make sense, that people would see you clearly, that your gifts would open doors. But what you learned was harder and holier, that being chosen often means walking alone before anyone can follow, that your light first offends before it inspires, that your growth will require endings no one claps for, but still, you kept going. You endured ridicule, misinterpretation, spiritual droughts, divine delays, and still, you kept moving. Not because you were sure of where you were going, but because you were sure of what you couldn't return to. That is sacred evolution. That is higher awareness. That is what births a destiny no one can rewrite. Now, you stand at the edge of the misunderstanding, and you're ready to walk away from it. You don't need it anymore. You don't need to be the version of yourself that carries guilt for choosing peace. You don't need to play small just to make others comfortable. You don't need to explain to those who didn't try to understand you when you were suffering. You've been called into a new space, and you've earned it. You've learned how to speak the language of your spirit. You've learned how to say no without guilt, how to stand still without fear, how to release without chasing. You are becoming fluent in freedom, and freedom for you doesn't look like escape. It looks like full presence. It looks like showing up to your life without apology, without hesitation, without bending yourself to fit into containers that were never built for your expansion. That's what this part of your story is about. Not just understanding, but embodiment. Because now, you don't just know you're worthy, you feel it. In your bones, in your choices, in the spaces you now protect with sacred boundaries. You no longer abandon yourself for temporary comfort. You no longer trade your intuition for inclusion. You no longer pretend to be okay just to keep a false sense of harmony. The masks are off. The roles are dissolved. The performance has ended. All that's left is the real you, the remembered you, the revealed you. And you are more powerful than you ever imagined. Not because you figured it all out, but because you stopped pretending you had to. You've released the obsession with answers. You've fallen in love with alignment. You've surrendered your timelines and stepped into divine flow. You've stopped begging for doors to open, and now you walk past them knowing, what's mine will never be closed to me. You've become your own confirmation. That used to scare you. You wanted someone to tell you you were doing it right. You wanted signs, you wanted certainty, but you've outgrown that version of faith. You've stepped into a deeper knowing, one that doesn't need proof to act, doesn't need approval to exist, and doesn't need company to rise. You now realize the misunderstanding wasn't a curse, it was a chrysalis. It kept you wrapped just long enough for the wings to form. And now, those wings are opening, not to escape, but to soar. Not to impress, but to move with clarity. Not to prove your worth, but to live it. Everything around you is shifting in response to your internal alignment. People will notice. Some will pull away. Some will be drawn in. Some will try to meet you where you are now, while others will try to drag you back into who you used to be. But none of it can touch your knowing. None of it can alter the certainty you now carry in your energy. You're not here to convince anyone anymore. You're here to live the frequency of truth. That frequency will do the speaking for you. It will attract what resonates. It will repel what drains you. It will lead you into spaces designed for your expansion, not your survival. The life that once fit now feels foreign. The conversations that once consumed you now sound like noise. The goals that once motivated you now seem like distractions. This is not loss. This is realignment. This is what happens when you stop living from the mind and start living from the soul. And it's not always comfortable, but it's always clean. It clears, it cuts, it clarifies. You don't leave fragments behind. You leave fully. You don't half heal. You alchemize. You don't fake closure. You create it by walking away with truth and choosing yourself, fully, loudly, and without guilt. This is your new language. This is your new normal. This is the version of you the world has been waiting to meet. And what's most powerful is that you don't need anyone else to validate this part of the journey. You've stopped looking outward. You've stopped seeking permission. You've stopped waiting for a moment to feel ready. You're already ready. Because everything unclear has now been illuminated by fire. Not the fire of destruction, but the fire of purification. And that fire has revealed what matters, what remains, and what was always meant to rise from the ashes. You, chosen one, are no longer bound by misunderstanding. You are no longer addicted to explanation. You are no longer available for what confuses your soul. You've reached the center of your clarity, and from here, everything changes. Now, you know, not in theory, not as hope, but as embodied truth. The confusion that once clouded you has lifted, not because the world changed, but because you did. You no longer sit in circles of inner debate. You no longer rehearse conversations in your head just to feel seen. You no longer contort your soul to match someone else's comfort zone. You've grown into the version of you who no longer needs to understand why something hurt in order to heal from it. You don't need closure to move forward. You don't need apology to forgive. You don't need someone else's insight to validate what you already know inside your bones. The misunderstanding is over, not because all the pieces came together neatly, but because you stopped trying to solve a puzzle that was never yours to complete. That's the breakthrough. You see now, not everything broken needed to be fixed. Some things just needed to be released. Some things never made sense because they were never aligned. Some chapters never found resolution because your soul outgrew the need to repeat them. Some pain didn't come to punish you. It came to push you toward your path. And now that you're walking that path, everything shifts. This is the moment where what once echoed in your mind now dissolves in your spirit. You don't have to hold it anymore. You don't have to carry the questions. You don't have to keep visiting the past, trying to understand what was already speaking in symbols your higher self decoded long ago. You understand now. You've been initiated through silence, through loneliness, through longing that felt like absence but was really spiritual recalibration. And now, the fog is gone. What's left is not a perfect picture, but a perfectly aligned perspective. That's what was waiting for you on the other side of your misunderstanding. Not a reason, not a story, but peace. Real, steady, anchored peace. The kind that doesn't fluctuate with moods or mirrors. The kind that doesn't depend on who stays or who leaves. The kind that doesn't collapse when something doesn't go as planned. The kind of peace that comes from deep internal knowing, from remembering what you were always meant to know, that you are not here to decode chaos. You are here to live truth. And you are. You are finally living truth. Not filtered, not diluted, not borrowed, not someone else's version of success, not someone else's expectations projected onto your timeline, not someone else's confusion masquerading as love. You've dropped the masks. You've returned to source. You've reclaimed the voice you once gave away in exchange for belonging. And now, you belong to yourself. You no longer shapeshift to avoid judgment. You no longer self-abandon to avoid conflict. You no longer shrink to stay in rooms that insult your calling. You are done. Done explaining yourself to the blind. Done bleeding for the ungrateful. Done dimming your intuition just to keep people around who never honored it in the first place. You now understand what used to paralyze you, that sometimes the silence after the storm isn't emptiness. It's arrival, the echo of your own alignment. The confirmation you thought would come from others now comes from within, and it's louder, clearer, eternal. You know what's meant for you will never confuse your soul, that your spirit will always whisper before it screams, that the body keeps score, and now, finally, you're listening to it. Because now, you trust the wisdom of your own being. You move slower. You speak softer, but with more impact. You think deeper. You feel clearer. You choose wiser. Because you're no longer choosing from fear. You're choosing from freedom. And freedom has a frequency. It speaks in simple terms. It doesn't overpromise. It doesn't chase. It doesn't hustle for worth. It simply is. And that's who you are now. You simply are. Chosen. Remembered. Reclaimed. The misunderstanding wasn't your failure. It was your filter. It showed you what you weren't. It stripped away what was never real. It made space for what truly is. You now understand that endings are often disguised as beginnings. That confusion is a sacred fog, meant to slow you down so you can see clearly. That clarity isn't always a lightning bolt. It's a quiet release, a breath, a moment when you realize, I don't need this story anymore. And you don't. Tonight, that story ends. The one where you kept searching for meaning in places that only ever gave you noise. The one where you questioned your worth because someone couldn't see it. The one where you begged for closure that silence already gave you. The one where you held on out of hope instead of alignment. That story ends tonight, and a new one begins. This new story doesn't require you to prove yourself. It requires you to be yourself, fully, authentically, fearlessly. This story doesn't begin with applause. It begins with intention, with presence, with power. You no longer hide behind politeness. This story is not about becoming. It's about revealing. You are not becoming someone new. You are remembering someone ancient, someone whole, someone sacred, someone who existed before the trauma, before the delay, before the masks, someone who has always carried divine knowing. And tonight, you finally heard it. That voice inside you that says, you are not too late. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are aligned. You are free. You are home. And from this space of alignment, there is nothing you cannot do. So walk forward, chosen one, not with fear, but with focus, not with noise, but with clarity, not to prove anything, but to live everything. Tonight ends what you never understood, because now you're not living for answers. You're living from truth, and that truth will carry you into everything that's next, into love that honors your growth, into spaces that celebrate your presence, into timelines that no longer test your spirit, but support it. This is your beginning, and no one can take it from you.